Election today.
Oh, is that today?
Voted today. I voted.
Yeah, let's be happy now.
Okay, there could be write-ins.
Yeah, 6,000 of them.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
Do you have to get a certain number of votes?
I don't think so.
Me neither.
I think I just have to get the majority of the votes, so.
Sue, do you want me to get this to Kyle, or do you want to?
Do you have an address for him?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sure.
For the record.
Okay, we
Do
need to go?
what is there a, I'm not getting on the internet for some reason. Okay.
Again, are you
I'm
good?
asking you, are we good to go?
Sorry, 1 second. Let me make sure. Doesn't seem like anybody's here right now. Sorry, now I'm having some Zoom.
Let me guess, it's trying to update.
It is
It's always.
It is trying to
Yeah,
update, yes.
it's always the thing.
I bought this hat at the NRPA conference in 2014. And I forgot, I went to Anaheim and didn't take a hat in the middle of summer. Gosh, I went down to the gift shop in
Oh,
Hollywood.
And how long has it been
Right
missing?
next door to Disneyland, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, they had,
You
the
paid $80
entertainment
for
was
it?
a night in Disneyland. There were a lot of interesting.
Yeah, how much? did
I
you
would
pay
have
for
gone to that one.
I don't remember,
But how long has it been missing?
I don't know. I don't remember, you know, I've got so many cats, really. I'm wearing my.
You gonna hang in there soon? How you feeling?
I feel awful.
Oh.
The surgeon said, okay, because I called in the 1 week, then I called back in on Tuesday when I couldn't swallow the Jello, or actually I called in Wednesday, I couldn't swallow Jello. I mean, it felt like there was something caught in my throat, and so he said, well, you seem to be having a setback, we'll give you a week. And he said, go find ibuprofen, liquid ibuprofen. Well, guess what? There's a shortage of ibuprofen.
I have ibuprofen in my house that I don't use. You
But
make
liquid.
ibuprofen?
It has to be liquid.
Oh, liquid.
Yeah,
caps.
so I had to go steal. I mean, there was none in Seaside, at Rite Aid or in Safeway. So I went up, I called up to Fred's and they said, yeah, we have some, you better come get it. So I got in the car, I drove up and there were 5 bottles of children's Motrin and 5 bottles of Advil, children's Advil.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, I told the pharmacist, I actually walked over with the liquid Advil. I feel like I'm robbing children.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, but you have a doctor's order that you need this, so take it or else somebody else will. So I have enough medicine for the week, because those little bottles, you finish them in 2 days.
Yeah.
As an adult dose.
Yeah.
So, but they taste good.
My children disagree.
My gosh. Well, the grape is so much better than Tylenol.
I've been using
My children
epoxy
disagree.
soda. And it helped my knee. I started.
My
taking
children
that.
would rather die.
Well, that grape
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
is so sugary, it's remarkable.
can you put it more that way?
Do you want me to do?
There we go.
Skylar, do you
Yeah.
want me to
I
try to
tried to pull up the document, and because I'm on a different computer, I don't have access to this Google document.
I got it.
And I could message Susan, but I'm pretty sure they're in budget committee or board meeting right now.
I can do it. I think I can.
Kind of frustrating. All right, I'm gonna press record, and then we will be good to roll.
So I have till Thursday to be better,
Alright.
or else she goes in.
Okay.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Potential conflict of interest, Sue.
None.
Mike.
I don't believe so.
Celeste.
None.
I just would like to remind everybody again that I work for the school district, but I don't have any monetary gain from anything. Public comment, anybody on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Nobody's here, perfect. New business, intergovernmental agreement with Seaside School District for Broadway Field Complex. Who wants to take the wheel on that?
Who wants to what?
So,
Take the wheel.
take the wheel? I mean, I'll take the wheel, but I think.
We're gonna have a discussion, but somebody kick it off, because somebody that's been involved with it more than I.
Sure, yeah, I'll share. So, just kind of outlined a little recap of some of the things that have happened since we met last. You probably know, but last Monday, City Council and School District agreed on a land lease agreement. I have a couple of copies of that, but that agreement essentially transfers the land on the Broadway Field complex to the school district. And then we are working out, you have the intergovernmental agreement, which will replace current intergovernmental agreement and cuts out the city and is just an agreement between the school district and us. We've been working on it for a long time, and there's still capacity, I think, to make changes. However, the reason why we're having this special meeting is because the school district is hoping, and there's lots of plans, I want to be transparent about that, there's lots of plans in place to start construction on the field, at least on the returfing of the existing field on Monday the 22nd. Now, it's unclear to all parties if the pre-existing condition of having the intergovernmental agreement be completed prior to construction means the returfing, or if it just means the softball field relocation. But my personal feeling, and I think the board members that I've been working with are aligned on this, is that we need an agreement in place before construction starts to protect the district's financial interest and the future of the field, which the softball field will exist on part of our property. The returfing doesn't, but obviously there's a lot of considerations. The superintendent couldn't be here tonight because they have pre-existing meetings, budget meetings, and a board meeting, I think. Otherwise she would be. I guess the last item I think is important for us to understand, so that even though the returfing of the existing fields is what's happening starting Monday, the intergovernmental agreement is designed, and it is still a flawed and like I said, editable document. But it's designed to encompass the returf portion of the field, the softball field, the Hirsch facility, and all of the amenities that are connected with that. And it also addresses some of the other components of the park as it relates to the field complex. Parking, restrooms, lights, those types of things that are intrinsically connected to the complex. So that's my overview. I am happy to spend 5 hours, 1 hour. I think what would be nice, I guess, for me is to understand where the board is at with this document and be realistic about our timeline for moving forward. The way I see it, you don't have to approve it tonight, but you could say we approve it. You have options, I think, still, and we have a few days before Monday. So you could say at the end of the meeting, you could say we approve it with these changes. You could say I like how it is right now. You could say I don't like it. I want to start, hopefully not start over, but so there's options. The special meeting isn't to force us into signing it, and I'm not doing that. I think there's a dynamic here that we have to be mindful of, and that is that the school is on a timeline, and their contractors are on a timeline, and this is the time that they have to get the field done if it's going to be completed by fall. And so us taking our time and being really deliberate is important, but there's a dynamic that, or there could be a perception that we're delaying the project, when really I think we're just doing our best in due diligence. We'll also say, sorry, and then I'll shut up, is I think this document, like I said, it's not perfect, it's flawed, and it is editable, But it's the result of the three, Celeste, Michael, and myself. And I think that that's been a little bit frustrating because I think we had hoped that we would have more representation on creating the document.
From us?
What's that?
From us or from the school?
From the school. Since
Yeah,
this is
I
their
didn't know
project and such, we
Really?
can get into the dynamic. I guess I just feel like we've driven the horse a lot in this project.
We've driven the horse.
In order to comply with this timeline.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's why I think tensions are a little bit higher, because we worked really hard on it, knowing that it's not quite perfect yet.
So, I personally would like to acknowledge that I get where we're at in the process, and I definitely don't want us to be perceived as putting things up. That's why we're here for a special meeting. I mean, not all of us have better things to do. But I do agree that we want to do our due diligence. My very first question is, has this been reviewed by our council?
So, it has, in a sense. So I worked with Eileen on this document, but it was earlier in, like, a month or more ago. And the reason why is because for me to manage the creation of the document, working with the school, working with their council, working with our board, there's just too many versions going around. So, and personally, I guess I didn't know if the board wanted our council to be keyed in on it in the same way, in the timeline for doing that. And also, this is a really complex project, and to get Eileen up to speed, even with what I did, was, I mean, it was a good chunk of time, and we're going to be billed for that. And so, if the board wants, after this is close to finished, if they want me to send it to her and say, hey, can you look this over? Their council is reviewing it, and maybe they're only representing their
This
interests.
is such an investment in our district. I mean, this is huge for, well,
I feel like,
Yeah.
sorry,
You
go ahead.
go ahead, Celeste, you go ahead.
So, this has been complex because there's lots of different players and it's a confusing project, right?
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of different parts to it. And I feel like what we have here together now in front of us is a sort of cobbled together version of the document. It's a little scattered and goes back and forth on some issues, and some areas need a little bit more clarity. And I think, and we all know that, but I do feel like we've had an opportunity to clear the air. So there is an understanding of where we sit on all the pieces from my perspective. I have one piece that I'm not very clear about, two pieces that I'm not very clear about that I think we should discuss. The document still has a little ways to go to actually have it represented well in writing, because right now it's sort of bouncing around to different things in different places. Susan is having their attorney re-edit the document to have it be a little more clear. I don't think we should take up our attorney's time to do that kind of review. I do think we should have our attorney do a due diligence review at the end to make sure we cross T's and dotted I's. But I feel like for the board, to me, what I'm really interested in hearing is, are we happy with the agreement? Not necessarily how it's phrased, but are we happy with the agreement that we have going in? That's the distinction I would make.
Well, and I was at that council meeting. I didn't, I continued to not feel well after surgery. However, what confused me, and I texted Skylar, and it appeared that Susan, the superintendent of the school, pulled out of future returfing.
She pulled the city out, so the city would not be obligated on future returfing. And in turn, the school district would carry 2/3 of the cost of that returfing, just like they're going to carry the city's portion and pay 2/3 of the cost of this returfing.
Are we okay with that?
I mean, I would love if they paid 100% of it, but we were obligated to at least 1/3. Basically, the agreement, it's
That's a promise we made.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I knew I heard something, and I was like, I needed to clarify it. Do you know when it comes, when we go forward to city council again?
I don't think we do. That's part of this agreement.
Okay.
Unless, yeah.
The city is basically, once this agreement is signed, and I would assume that it is or it will be soon, the affairs of the Broadway Park complex will be governed by the school district and us, and not the city. Unless they want to break that lease agreement that they have, which there's, room in the agreement for them to break that.
Okay.
I appreciate Celeste's comments too about it. And there were feedback about the management committee. And I saw that from the school district about having regular meetings and, how that was going to be managed. There still are questions. My main questions are, will this document, will it at the same time inaugurate this new IGA while vacating the old IGA?
That's correct.
I think actually, because I read someplace, I think we actually have to take a vote to vacate the old idea. I think
The
that's,
board does? I think, yeah.
I think we-
I got the
I think-
impression from the notes, and Celeste has been very articulate and very helpful with, and Susan seems to have gravitated, communicating with you. She's been so, right in the hunt the whole time. But I was wondering about the utility costs of why on the field lighting, unless we're going to be using the field for our own events, why should we pay 25% of the field lighting cost?
Yeah, so I think what we have to understand with this change, now we are, in a sense, we're representing all of the non-school district users of the field, which would include walk-ups, pickup games, rentals outside of the school district, even Seaside Kids. They're not in this agreement, but they're one of the primary users of the field outside of the school district.
At night.
Yeah, even at night.
So are they not liable for any costs?
it would be up to us to pass the fee on.
Yeah, and we do pass the fees on to the renters, but as far as walk-ups, the way that I feel like we have to interpret the field is this is a community asset, it's a resource. So just like we don't charge people to come use the basketball court or the skate park, even if the lights are on, we would incur some of those costs as a result of providing this service. And
So we'd actually be providing light for the skate park, which the city still owns.
Correct.
And we don't manage necessarily.
I was trying to find the email from Susan that I had a question about, and I can't find it. She had sent out something to the school district about the Broadway field right after the city, said moved on. And her phrasing I was curious about. She said that they would give them control of the Hirsch training facility, but so the land is the city, but the facility itself is still Seaside Kids. Are we still managing that facility for them, or is the school district taking over that?
Who pays for the utilities for the concession?
It says here that Seaside Kids, somewhere in all my notes, there's a thing about Seaside Kids.
All right, so if you turn to page 6, the Hirsch facility is addressed, and it says, this agreement dissolves the previous IGA between the city, SEPRD, and Seaside Kids, with Seaside Kids retaining ownership. The FTF will be scheduled and managed by SEPRD according to Exhibit B, which is essentially the way it is now, and that school district and SEPRD will provide liability insurance for the facility.
For the manager, and the currently say we can.
Essentially, what the previous IGA calls for is that the interior fixtures outside of the concession stand and the restrooms are Seaside Kids' property and their responsibility to maintain, upkeep, replace, etc. We manage, or we maintain and are responsible for the exterior fixtures of the HFTF concession stand and restrooms.
Okay, thank you.
So I think a couple of the things that to me were big ticket items, if that's helpful to go through, that we worked through and discussed. So one is that we got, actually, it is written in this document, the construction phases, right? And that the school district takes responsibility for construction phases, and I think that was really important. It also says something, although there's a follow-up communication with Susan about this, that the school district will be responsible for financially for the cost of the locker room revisions, pending a collaborative design process between Park and Rec and school district, which to me was a really important thing because I didn't want us to move forward and not know who was going to be responsible for the locker room costs, and so that is now included in here, which I think is important. The piece that I'm not really clear about that still is causing me a little bit of angst is the ongoing maintenance piece. And part of the reason I think it's causing me angst is because it's addressed in several locations in this document. I prefer it compiled into a single place. And what I'm not clear about, and I sent this as a discussion, I sent this to Susan, I think, is there is a chart that says that the school district is going to provide us $29,000 for the year of 2023-24. That's on page 5, yep. And it says they'll pay us for regular maintenance, $29,900 for the following year, and then an escalating cost, right? And then on the next page, right at the top, it says, this amount is inclusive of the following expenses incurred by Park and Rec as a result of this agreement. Staff expenses for maintenance staff for regularly maintaining the field.
Yeah.
Now, that's not my so what's the payment for supplies? What's the payment for stuff like turf replacement supplies? So I'm not sure if that's actually intended to be included in that $29,900 or if that's this separate fund that was talked about where the school district puts in 30 and we put in 15, and that is talked about on page 3.
Under major maintenance.
Both school district and Park and Rec should allocate funds annually for major planned maintenance needs, but that doesn't include the small maintenance needs, like supplies and all the stuff that you have to do, or utilities, or anything like that. It's not, so I'm not sure where the maintenance costs, how that's getting covered, if it's under that fund, or if that's supposed to be carved out of that $29,900. The numbers are so close that I didn't know if we were talking about the same set of money or different set of money. Because my concern is that $29,900 to cover our staffing costs, okay, I can buy that. But if it's covering our staffing costs, plus us purchasing paint and repair stuff and toilet paper and janitorial supplies and paying utilities, now $29,900 doesn't seem like very much. So that's my concern. That's the item I'd say is causing me the biggest angst.
I think that's fair. I did clean it up. I think page 6, the most recent version. I added in some of your feedback about consumables and
On page where?
page 6 under the chart. So it's not just for maintenance staff, but also consumables used within the complex. So things like the paper towels and toilet paper and stuff. You may not have that.
Oh, it's not in
it's
here?
not in
Okay.
your packet, but I have some extra copies right here of the most recent version. That's what I mean is this document has just been
Yeah.
rolling, right? So, to your point, though, I agree that the $29,900 doesn't cover that. That's essentially what we worked out to be, actually not essentially, exactly a position of 25 hours a week average throughout the year, just for the staffing of that position.
For the staffing?
Not for,
No.
Because the others should come out of this fund, which I'd like to see more clearly outlined here.
Yeah.
Like the management group should be clearly outlined, I think, that
the same.
the
Yeah.
term,
Because
but also this fund, I think, needs to be named so that it's clear.
Sure.
And what I don't want to have happen is you taking money out of that to pay for supplies,
No, I agree.
and then somebody coming back and say, well, where'd all that money go? And
Yeah. And transparency, I know you know
Yeah.
this, but I think it's important for the board to know, we had originally come to the school district with a higher number, a higher annual contribution, and, we've had some negotiations, and this is kind of, I'm not saying it's agreed upon, because this is the party that needs to agree upon it, but,
Might not be enough.
well,
well,
yeah.
it is, in fairness, it is 3 times what we're getting now. essentially, and we're also asking them, or they're going to contribute $30,000 annually to major maintenance, which, you know, could be used, if it was better described, I think could be used for some of these things. We could draw on that for some of those consumables.
So-
But I think we just need to spell it out better.
And I think this also goes to, because this actually gave me some confidence, when Mike and I had the sit-down meeting with Susan, because we talked about some of these concerns, that we don't really know what we don't know yet, as far as what things are gonna cost, and we need to track better, and I think our team needs to improve tracking, both in terms of time and making sure that we're accounting for things, and we know exactly what we're spending, so, for this new project. And when I brought up those concerns with Susan, her response was, well, we can revisit this annually and look at this and adjust what we need to put into that fund. So I think the assumption would be is that we do a 1/3, 2/3 share.
Did you say that, is it written?
So
It is, I did
it
see
is,
it.
it's in the it's on page 2, so there's some
Yeah.
reference to it about this is the role of this,
IGA
management,
Good.
IGA
So
management.
this is gonna be a living document.
Right, and that the IGA management committee could actually, I mean, they can't authorize funds from the school district or from us, but they could say, we see that we need a bigger budget, and then that would go
Well,
to Park and Rec and to the school district to approve.
shouldn't they state in here or preface it in the entry that this is a living document? I mean, the city parks master plan is a living document that can be changed digitally at Public Works. So, but we want to make sure that no one tinkers with this, without
So I-
afraid that it's locked up. But if
I think
we-
that's legit to add into that, so it says the role of the committee is to review the annual budget, draft, oh, it does say that, draft any amendments needed, so that would imply that it's a
Yeah.
living document, right, that we're gonna draft
Yeah,
amendments as needed, so.
yeah, I like that. The, yeah, notwithstanding that, you know, that things may not be perfect yet, and, I think we need to be careful and make sure that we do our due diligence with our legal review. I think legal review needs to sign off before we sign off.
I do agree
And
with
I really feel
what
that, you know,
Parks and, or not Parks and,
Yeah.
the school
We
district
need to-
lawyer.
Our attorneys are gonna, at protecting us, and, anyway, I think it's important, and then there's the point on page 7 where, you know, that we need to have a lease, the city intends to have a lease with us about the portion of our property that's being, creating the expansion of, you know, Broadway Park. And Broadway
So,
Fields.
that's a good question.
But we don't have that yet.
But do we
And
need to
It
have
might
a
be
lease?
something on the table.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike, because I don't know if this acts as a de facto lease in stating how they're using our land. And
No,
then-
it's not a de facto lease, it states that a separate lease agreement, would be created after,
It says that in here?
yeah, on page 7. This lease did on the draft I had.
Can we,
That was the draft I saw on mine.
I have a favor.
It was an item, you know.
I'm very tired. Can we just kind of go section by section?
I was looking at it
Rather than
online.
just
I was
bouncing?
I was looking at it
I'll tell you,
online.
I've kind of lost,
I know. And
and I've got so many notes that I'm
so,
like, you're
is
gonna shoot me.
that doable?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little tough because
Oh,
it
that
goes
was,
around.
that was in the lease agreement with the city.
Right, I think that's between the city and the
Yeah,
school district.
but it states, it was page 7 on that, about the intent of them to have a lease with us. And it's not mentioned in the IGA that there would be any condition there that might come up, that might leave a gap in our agreement. But yeah, it's page 7 on, where I saw it online,
Does Seaside Kid
lease, net lease, lease.
look over for their part? I mean, do they have any
May have
stake in
jumped.
this?
Yeah, I think that maybe changed, Mike, because of the agreement with,
Well,
between city and.
Yeah, it was, the one online that got forwarded to me, before I read it just this afternoon, I was looking at all this before the meeting. So, we don't have a lease, but the city intends to have a lease, you know, where is it stated?
I don't know, I guess,
It was there one minute and now it's, doesn't seem to be there.
if it needs to have a part of this document, I guess, to me, because
Where
it's
is
a different
that?
property. So to answer your question about Seaside Kids, they are aware, the school district has done a good job of asking them for feedback and trying to include them in the conversation. I don't know if they've been as engaged as maybe would have been ideal.
Okay.
They're a volunteer organization, and we're giving them opportunities. I know they voiced some strong preferences about the future of the HFTF, and yeah, there's a lot of
Do you have insight about what those are? Are any of those?
that it stays, that it's after it's relocated, it stays the same as it is now. They did not want to have Seaside Kids be written out of the HFTF. They wanted to still be a party, they wanted to still manage it, or have it be managed in the same way that it's being managed now.
And is there any issue with that we know?
I think it's tricky, from what I understand from talking to the other parties in this agreement, and what very little I understand of the law, it's very unusual and maybe even highly irregular to have a nonprofit be a party in an intergovernmental agreement, because they're not a government agency. So not this IGA, but the other IGA. I think ideally we probably would have figured out a different structure for that agreement to work. And I guess from my perspective and from what I've heard about Seaside Kids, I think they're an amazing organization, but I know that funding is a constant challenge for them. So to have them liable, financially liable, for a significant investment and not know if they have the reserves to address those things should they come up, is concerning, because now that facility is on our property, but it's something that we are also tied to, and we have bigger reserves.
So, can I, not necessarily about this, I'm just curious if anybody, when they pick up that building and move it, are there any, like, I don't know how it works, is there guarantees of like, okay, we didn't mess up your building, it's fine?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the work is all going to be performed by bonded, licensed, insured.
And I feel like we have that now covered in multiple meetings and drafted here, that it says
And in the
that the
MOU.
school district and their contractors are responsible for the financials. So I feel like we've covered our bases on, as far as financial costs and liability regarding construction. The construction piece, it's pretty black and white as far as the construction, all this construction stuff
I'm
going on.
just thinking, you know how sometimes like, you know, for example, your car gets in a wreck and they repair it, and then you don't find out later, like, oh, whoops, they didn't do a great job on fixing that thing.
Yeah, but it's the school that they're gonna have to come back and take care of it. Like,
Okay.
that's their contractors will have to take care of it. That's where you go after bonds and stuff like that. So that's, yeah.
It's just weird thinking of, let's just put it over here.
Yeah.
So now, you know, that's weird that they, all of a sudden, this document is not the one, doesn't look like the one I saw online. You sent me the release. I saw that clause about Park District, you know, the city intending
Oh,
to
that's
negotiate lease with us.
That's in the city document that he sent you. That's a different
I
document.
know, but it's not, this is not the lease?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, staff report. Yeah, that one is.
That's the same one that.
Oh, it is?
I don't see it in here.
Yeah, but you probably were looking at the piece that is
Well, it
about
might
the
have been
lease.
The
edited.
land lease agreement between the city
I don't see it in
and
here.
the school district. It's prefaced with the staff report, but then the agreement is on the pages following. To be honest, I mean, I know it might be in our interest to look at that, but I think it's just too much for us to tackle right now. It's too much for me. I haven't dove into that because I don't have the capacity to figure that out, figure this out, let's do all the other stuff.
And I think in the simplest terms, what that transaction did between Seaside School District and the city is simplifying things for us. It made it so that we're only dealing with the school district. So we don't have to get in their business. That's their business
No.
between the
But they have business with us because they're gonna use our property for construction.
school
Why
district.
should we allow construction on our property without a lease agreement?
But the
Wouldn't make
IGA,
sense.
the IGA is the lease agreement.
that's with the city, not for us.
No, the IGA is between us and Seaside School District.
This document
Right, but,
is our lease.
but the whole field is part of city park,
But the city has removed themselves from
They
that
have.
lease
So-
because of their,
Are we,
Right.
what are we gonna agree with the school district then with regard to our property? Is that described in this new?
yes, it
document?
is, it's described in the IGA.
Okay.
And I agree, like, the
All right.
problem between what the school district is doing on the city property, because that's city park property,
Yeah.
right? That's not our concern,
No,
it
I
belongs to
agree.
them. So they all
Yeah.
seem happy with it,
Yeah.
I think they all seem settled, that they have now
Well, yeah.
removed themselves and given the power over to Seaside School District to take care of all the things that need to be done on that piece of property. That's
I
good with
just wanna
them.
make sure
Yeah.
that the agreement with the city was synchronized with our
Yeah,
IGH, that there
I
were no
agree.
gaps,
Right.
and, so I just want it to be seamless,
Yeah.
as much as possible.
Okay. Section 1, background. Is there
Mhm.
anything that we want to change, edit, discuss in that section?
Well, I've got a bunch of stuff before that.
You have a bunch of stuff before section 1?
Yeah,
All the whereas.
yeah, the whereases.
Okay, go. What's your question?
So the first one is in, the title was fine, the first statement and then the first whereas was fine. The second one, what I got into was, what are we talking about? Because they're operating Broadway Park, which contains this, and this. But then we get down into some other stuff where they're talking about playing fields versus Broadway Park versus Broadway Field versus Broadway Field Complex. Do we need to identify what terms are which, or use one
Yeah.
word instead of four?
To me, all the whereas is describing why we're having a
But see,
document.
throughout the document, when they use Broadway Field Complex, and sometimes they use Broadway Park, and sometimes.
I think to me, that feels like wordsmithing, and that's what we're gonna have the attorneys take care of, fix,
But-
because you're right, that is
Yes,
a
it needs to be
problem in it.
specific.
Right.
Okay, because right now, I don't know what they're talking about, because here they describe Broadway Park, and then they call it Broadway Field.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah,
that's four
okay.
different titles.
So
That
Fields-
consistency,
Fields Park is the park.
that one we'll let the lawyers figure out.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Skip a whereas and go out to, there's a missing word, where a school district, currently have an IGA with the city of Seaside, but the city and school
I think-
district will have a land lease agreement with the blank.
I think-
You need a new one. You're talking about whereas school district and SEPRD currently have an IGA, that one?
Yes,
Okay.
so the second line, what's the word?
It's SEPRD, I think maybe it was missing from the draft.
But
You
the
have,
city and school district will have a land lease agreement with the blank.
It says with the two.
Because
the
this new
plain
one, it
text.
doesn't have it either.
Which one?
This new one that you gave
I
us.
don't know, which
Oh,
whereas?
right
There's
here.
1, 2, 3,
yeah.
4, 5th paragraph. Very last line of the, last word of the second line. What's the word? But the city and school district will have a land lease agreement with the blank to lease the playing field area to the school district. It's just missing a word.
Okay, it just has too many words.
yeah.
It should, with, land lease agreement, with, should be crossed out. It should just say land lease agreement to lease the playing field.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I was confused about
So
where
the-
we were at.
The next paragraph,
So-
where a school district, and this is where, again, playing fields,
Hey, Sue, I think part of what the attorney is gonna do is fix the nitpicking.
So I
So
think-
let's do a little bit bigger picture and not necessarily so.
see, I don't have a picture. I don't
Well-
have any picture. So all I have is what's in front of me. And
But-
so, I don't know you guys can do whatever you want. I just don't understand.
So are you not understanding, like, when they're saying playing fields, you don't know what we're talking about?
I think playing fields is getting, I think it's sloppy.
It
They're
is
getting-
sloppy, we all agree with you on that, but the attorney, like, I don't think we need to wordsmith the document, because Seaside School District has that in process already. So for us
Okay.
to do it will be redundant, will be
just make more confusion.
It'll make more confusion if we do that. Now, if the meaning isn't clear, we should correct that. Like, if the
Right.
meaning, if you're not understanding the meaning, I think we should address and correct that.
Well, it's like, you know, the last paragraph, Broadway Field Complex is split between City of Seaside and Sunset Empire. So is that the field, or is that the playing field, or is?
Where are you reading?
The very last paragraph?
The field,
What is the Broadway Field Complex versus all the other words?
This,
Picture.
on the picture,
Right, so and that does not include the skate park?
correct.
this here, it's outlined in red, this is.
Oh, I know, this is a pretty lousy picture. So this picture, you know, the skate park is part of what? The city?
city.
Park is, yeah,
The
excluded.
city still
Okay.
owns
Park
the
is
skate
right
park.
here.
And the
No, the skate park's right here.
right, and the grandstands are included?
And if you look at
Yeah,
this,
but the school district, we're not responsible for the bleachers, but the school district is.
Okay.
Am I correct on this?
So maybe what it needs to say is the land ownership of the Broadway Field Complex, see below, you know, picture, or, you know,
yeah, and part of this is only setting the stage for what this agreement is about. Like, this agreement is not about the skate park, so this is trying to set some parameters of what this is about. This is not a legal document describing who owns what. That's already in title at the county records, right? Like, this doesn't change who actually owns anything.
Right.
This is only
It's not
trying to
gonna work.
describe
Of these,
of what we're talking about, what the scope of the project is. This doesn't include the canoe landing over there, and it doesn't include the pool, and it's just trying to set the stage for the project that we're talking
And
about.
it doesn't include any of the park?
correct. That's the city.
no. City park stays city
City
park.
is removing
Those
itself from.
restrooms over there, the picnic shelters, if you will, the playgrounds, all that remains in the city's care.
And
Mow
so-
the grass.
So I think Skylar's, and I think this is the right way to do it, was to define this area in red as the Broadway Field Complex, just so that we're not vacillating back and forth between
Right.
saying fields and parks and da-da-da, like, so it's not as
Yeah.
confusing. It was picking a term, which I think is a good term, and probably needs to be now generated throughout the document to be this consistent.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Good point.
Just a nitpicky thing, but I think where we spell out in that first paragraph under background, where it says include athletes who will use the field for softball, baseball, soccer, and football, I think it just should also say, and other recreation, you know, like, who knows what we're gonna come up with.
Yeah, football and recreation, and I don't think it should say athletes, it should just say people.
Yeah, originally I think I said students.
But even that,
But,
Yeah.
I think that's why we went to athletes, because it
Yeah.
felt more inclusive, but people is fine. People's great. People are great.
I just think recreation can mean
Yeah.
Yep.
all the future children.
I mean, there have been times where we've used the field for lacrosse, that would be,
Yeah.
And
Okay,
egg hunt.
yes.
bush balls.
Okay, Sue, are we up to section 1?
I just kinda, it's whatever you guys wanna do.
Okay.
I'm just too picky.
So you're looking,
I'm just kind of reading just to see if there's anything that jumps out at me. Definitely not Laura. Does it, in this spot up here, so I feel like it, to Sue's point about all the whereases up here, maybe there should be one spot, because usually they say in like legal documents, you know, all these things shall be further, you know, referred to as,
yeah, definitions.
yes,
Yeah, I think I bet you the lawyer will put in
Will
a
put a
definition
definition.
section, you could make a note. I'm making a note here, I don't know if you're keeping a,
I have some, I would say, yeah, the whereases are over my ability and head right now.
Yeah.
But I really just took these from the existing IJ, which I'm sure was reviewed by some legal party, and then edited them to fit where we're at now. So,
Is anyone looking at section 2 yet? Are we on?
We're moving there slowly, Mike, sorry. Okay, so I like the diagram, I think that's helpful.
sorry, it's not in color, but I think,
Mine's in color.
Sue, do you have a color?
color.
And I mean,
It's
I don't know how to do a map better than this is
No,
from
no,
Google Maps.
I thought there was something about the in the further words, something about the bleachers stood out, something.
The school district's gonna pay for
Because I'm
bleachers.
curious what our liability is for somebody injured in the bleachers.
We're not liable for anything in the bleachers, according to what I've read so far.
Well, we're liable if it's our programming.
We're not even liable for, we're not
And I
responsible
think
for
liable
maintaining the
is a really tricky word, because I mean, we're exposed, certainly, I don't
Yeah,
know if
we
we would
certainly
be
are.
found liable,
Right.
but, yeah, the bleachers are a concern, they're a concern that's shared with the school district as well, because they're old, they're not ADA compliant or accessible right now. They're in fine shape, they're not gonna break or blow over, but, they're not as good as they probably should be, so.
I think to me, this is part of the reason to have that IGA management committee that's addressed in section 2, is so that we can prioritize things that need to be done, and we will have that group, to draft proposals and elevate them.
Right, now, I had a question about that under section 2, governance and management. The role of the committee is to review the annual budget, draft any amendments needed, approve major repairs, and other duties. So, if there are amendments
They'll need to be a board
to the
approval.
IGA, those amendments would come to our respective boards, would they not?
So will the budget. They don't have decision-making, they are review and propose.
Right, so someone would have to,
So
release the
maybe,
money, to see if it was extraordinary.
So,
maybe there should be something about
I just wondered about
proposed,
so right now, is that team Skylar, Susan, Brian, Celeste, Mike, and anybody else?
maintenance, well,
The Seaside Kids involved?
So, sorry, I'm confused, because my copy, and I think everybody's copy, doesn't it? It doesn't include Celeste or Mike, and I think
No.
it could, or it should maybe. I think there's maybe a case for that, if boards from either SEPRD or school. But I think the goal is, like, this is just a mechanism in place to get this group together, troubleshoot the problems, identify solutions, and then elevate those solutions as needed to the respective boards.
yes.
Okay.
And it does include Seaside Kids, a representative from Seaside Kids, so that would probably be Jessica or Scott White or somebody like that,
And a maintenance
and a maintenance
person.
staff. So for us, that would probably be Levi, and for the school, that would probably be Chuck, or, yeah, it could be the principal or the athletic director. I know they're not maintenance staff, but they know what's going on.
I have no complaints about this section, other than I feel like it should be spelled out somewhere that these things will be brought before board.
Okay. So maybe, second sentence of the role of the committee,
Yeah.
Celeste, if you can help me
Yeah,
wordsmith
I'd
this
be-
on the fly, but, the annual budget, amendments needed, major repairs, and other duties should be brought to the boards of Sunset Empire and School District on on an appropriate timeline.
Yeah. Not that, like, I just feel like that needs to just be spelled out. Just in case.
Sure.
Okay, any other for section 2? Moving on.
Well, can we add a D on
Yes.
section after Park and
Sorry
Recreation?
about that. You think, get that one right?
Parks and Recreation.
It's just the title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, annual costs,
So this is the place where I do,
I was looking at, 3.1, the billing, how, like, light, sewer, water, how is that divided? I mean, is it, who gets the bill, how does that work?
so this is the problem, is that it's covered in a different section. And to me, this is why it should all be together.
I feel like it could be referenced in multiple places, but it should be all brought into one for easy, oh my gosh, my brain just, what's the word? Transparency, thank you.
Because one question I had when I was helping to clean up after the, the field, after the Easter, was all the sunflower seeds. Can we, is there a way to enforce with the re-turf that, no sunflower seeds?
We can certainly do our best.
That was supposed to have been a rule from the get-go when that turf field was put in, it was a rule.
It absolutely has been a rule, but it's not followed by all of the parties, and
Someone needs to write tickets.
Well,
All I know is I was
or,
picking up sunflower seeds and it
well,
didn't-
can it be, tacked on to, like every time we have to pick up sunflower seeds, we're gonna get a fee?
Well, the problem is that the administrative burden of figuring that out and negotiating it out every time.
and also identifying who's the sunflower seeds bidder.
Well, the DNA.
So, but I think that is why
Sorry,
the
I'm
maintenance
here for
fee.
levity.
I didn't think that.
I think that's the idea of raising that maintenance fee, the annual fee that we have each year, so that we feel well covered, right? To take care of some of that extra stuff if need be.
Okay.
Because we don't think Seaside School District is gonna come down and come over and take care of that stuff. I mean, and if it becomes a problem where it exceeds what we think we can do within that 29.9,
It gets renegotiated.
now it gets renegotiated, goes to the IGA, now we have a mechanism.
We
to
can
send
make
it
sure
to-
that the concessions do not sell sunflower seeds.
You could do that, yeah, you could.
What,
We
what
can make sure of that.
damage
We
does
can
the,
ban certain foods.
what does the sunflower seeds do to that field?
They
Just
just sit
it.
there.
They just
They
Yeah.
sit there.
decompose.
I mean, I was picking up clumps of sunflower
We
seeds.
really shouldn't probably do that, too. I mean, those things have been in people's.
Well, no, but what happened is there were
Describing
pieces of eggs, plastic eggs that were broken and candy wrappers and stuff, so I was out there just walking along going, oh my gosh, wish I had a glove.
We should talk about
So-
that another time. I'm concerned about your hygienic safety.
As a nurse.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, why are there sunflower seeds
Okay,
all over the field?
so it would be nice if we had all of the maintenance items brought together into this.
So I think that's fine. I think that's, I'm hoping council, legal representation from whichever party can identify, okay, here's the redundancies in the document, here's how to make it a little more digestible.
Well, and I think maybe if we share, like, this is what we would like to see, the maintenance section brought together with, before they send it to their lawyer, maybe the lawyer can make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think to me though, what I'm really interested in hearing is, Skylar, I'm interested in hearing from you what your understanding is around the cost for this ongoing maintenance and what's covered under the 29.9 and what's covered under this fund
Which
that
would
we
probably
have,
be
which is gonna be about,
tuning into the budget meeting. We should be tuning into the budget meeting.
well, yeah, I don't know if they're covering this pretty
This
small
going on
potatoes
right
for
now.
the budget meeting, but yeah, but what can we pay for out of that $45,000 fund? I'm just gonna call it that, the fund, and what is covered under our $29,900 fee?
So I view them as being almost separate. I don't know, you know what I mean? To me, we agree that we'll spend the first $5,000 every calendar year or whatever fiscal year, maybe we should spell that out. And we will do these things, but as soon as we hit that $5,000, then we are going to say to this management committee, hey, we're over our threshold. Now we're gonna start using this money in this pot that we both contributed to order toilet paper and to do this other thing and do this other thing.
And when is the money getting put in that account?
Should be at the start of the fiscal year. I'm not sure if it's spelled out.
I would
Fiscal year, that's
spell
gonna
that
be in
out.
July.
I would put a date.
Do we share the same fiscal year as the
We do.
district?
Yes,
I just
but I would
wonder,
put a
you know,
date when that
if
money
we're gonna
needs to
be
be in that account.
responsible for helping pay for the field lighting, what is the estimated cost of the lighting? What is the existing cost? What has been spent on electricity annually on those fields
Yeah.
on average? And, maybe to date,
So to me, sorry, I want to pause you though, because I think there's some confusion about that. I don't see lighting as being a part of that $30,000 unless that management committee decides it's so.
That's what I'm wondering about, the actual utility costs and what it.
So, yeah, on average, the city has been paying about in between $13,000 and $15,000 annually for the lights of the field. However, the lights are metered with some other lights of the property in that area. So skate park lights and parking lights are also included in that meter. So separated out, it might be, you know, a little bit challenging, take some time. Also note that we're replacing the lights with LED lights, and we're expected to get, you know, a 30 to 40% efficiency increase.
Yeah, but they're adding lights to the softball field, so they think that's a push that will allow them to use existing power supply without having to redo that. You know what I was thinking? Do you think the power company would donate the power to Broadway Fields? Sometimes they donate the power to LCYSA for their field lighting. I saw right away. And I wrote the grant for their lighting, and I think the power company donates that.
I would say it's possible. I mean, we could ask. I think from what I know about the LCYSA fields, they are lit far less than our fields.
But maybe we can afford it.
Well, they're not used as much, that's for sure.
Is the city gonna put a separate meter? We don't know.
I think that's in the plan, but that could honestly take several months, maybe even longer. And maybe the city will decide, we're just gonna keep paying. It was sort of something that they didn't have to pay for on the existing IGA. We were actually supposed to pay for it, but they always have. And that's been nice and generous of them, so I'm not super worried about it right now. Maybe I think it's spelled out in here, so if they do meter it the right way, the city or the school district is responsible for 75% of the lighting cost. We're responsible for 25%.
And I'm gonna assume that the bill would go to the school district because they are
How about water and sewer?
property.
Well, we don't.
First building's got water and sewer.
I think the water is tapped from the pool, so that would probably, but I'm not sure what water outside of the sports teams needing a drink, what water we would need.
Water at the field.
The field has to be sanitized, doesn't it?
Not with water, no, it doesn't.
I've heard those turf fields have to be sanitized.
Yeah, that's probably not in Oregon.
I think that, on a lot of the, I mean, when it boils down to it, and I've said this a couple times, these are all our tax dollars, right? Like, my tax dollars are going to the city, or to Park and Rec, or to the school district. Somebody's gonna use my tax dollars to pay the lights. Do I really care which entity pays it? No. What I do care about is that we have some clarity, and that if it somehow is going to bust our budget or cause a hardship on our district, that we have a mechanism to go back and renegotiate. And I feel like that's in here. So I do feel like there's a lot of these unknowns.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like the fact that we're calling for annual reviews, as you said, it's a living document that we're gonna come back and look at, that we have a committee that has some discretionary funds to make some decisions about. Like, I feel like that is the piece that is going to cover us. Because what I don't want to have at the end of the year is Skylar coming to us and say, oh my gosh, we spent $250,000 more than we expected on Broadway Field because we had all of these unexpected lights and utility costs. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Whether or not it's an extra $3,000 and who's paying for that, like, that to me is less consequential.
I would ask that we put, 2 dates in here. One is when the committee will complete the annual review. So,
The annual budget, is that right?
any of that, like, when is that going to be done? And then.
What if we said something like so, do you want that done, I suppose, because if we're gonna make a recommendation about,
Budget for the district.
budget for the district for Q1, and we expect a deposit for Q1, right, in Q1, so probably the budgeting process has to take place.
I assume that this would just happen on the same timeline as our annual budget.
I would not assume.
No, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
this is how I think we would handle it.
Right.
Because we're getting the annual budget together, and it includes the Broadway Field Fund, and it's gonna spell out, okay, this is what
What we
think is gonna
anticipate,
happen.
yeah, so
But-
that
And
would
we
be,
but-
communicate that to this committee, and they, if the school district has their own process for getting it through, then that's.
so can we
their-
just add that in, that in alignment with SEPRD's budgeting timeline, annual timeline?
Sure.
I mean, that's.
I think we
Good
need to
point.
have accountability
Mhm.
for like when these things need to happen.
Yeah, it needs to be
And-
timely.
Yeah. And, I think the other thing is when the money from both parties is gonna get put into the account. Is that, 2 weeks after the beginning of the fiscal year? Is that a month? Is that, when is the date that payment needs to be in there?
So those
That's
funds
a
are,
good point, because I think based on, how we end our year, depending on our ending fund balance, and we'll creep along until November, until the taxes come in. Maybe when the taxes come in is the time to do it.
And that's totally fine. I just want, I think for both parties, we need to have a date that says,
Yeah, I agree.
this
That's
is
a
when
good
we're
point.
funding this account.
That's a good point, just, to see how our cash flow is.
Yeah. But it also holds everybody accountable. We can point to,
section 3.2.
We
So,
wouldn't
yeah,
want that
we can add a
to
when.
strangle our operations.
Okay.
okay, thank you. That's where I'm at so far.
So,
No, I mean, I'm good with that.
Did we already talked about spelling out what the 30 and the 15, like what that's covering?
So it's a fund to be used as recommended by the IGA management.
Okay.
So that would have its own budget for how that money is gonna be spent, and anything that is off of, that is deviates from that would be approved by the, or recommended by the.
Another, thing that I think should be spelled out is, because I know that this comes up sometimes, is what happens to the money that is in that account that isn't spent.
It would carry over just like
Well,
the fund.
I know, but I think that should be,
says the fund will accrue.
Accrue?
As needed for major
Okay.
maintenance.
okay.
Well,
Oh, you're right, there it is.
in the
Okay.
section where it talks about $30,000, and that is under 3.2, first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, that's $30,000 from the school district, and plus you 15,000 from Sunset Empire. Is that supposed to match the numbers on that page 5?
No,
You know.
that's separate from that.
So they're just gonna do 30 and we're gonna do 15? Okay.
Because
And that's
they
okay.
essentially have entered into this land lease agreement with the city to remove them from it. I don't think it's fair to expect us to carry that cost that the city was paying for. So if they wanted to do that, they wanted to pursue that agreement, and they did. So they're gonna carry what would have been the city's portion.
Okay.
If it was a third, a third, a third, now it's 2/3 and a third.
Okay.
Separate from the 29,900.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's just to cover major maintenance, and then let's have some money set aside, contributed to both of us. If we don't have to use it, that's great, we'll roll it into field returf in, 2035 or
So, okay, never mind. I just have a question.
So, I have a question about AV equipment. Is there stuff actually stored, up there where they do the announcing?
Yes,
It stays there all the time?
there's stuff stored in each of the press boxes that the school
And it's
uses.
secure?
It's as secure as it can be. I mean,
Okay.
it's not in a vault, but it's secure,
Is
it's
that
under
the-
lock and key.
Is that ours or is that the school's?
It's theirs, yeah.
The tower.
Yeah, I mean, so if you go to, some of these charts, there's the chart on page 7. There's also a chart at the end of the agreement. I'm sorry. But, yeah, the chart on page 7, I think, outlines all of those things, Sue, so, or, I mean, it's intended to. And it, like I said, it may not be complete, but, page 8, my page 8 says press boxes. Those are to be maintained by the school district at 75%. SEPRD would be responsible for 25%. Those include the 3 press boxes and all items in press boxes, including AV equipment, microphone, speakers, etc.
It's gonna be an additional press box for the new softball field.
Well, there is already one, so, I mean, it's
No.
just replacing that
And
one.
one for the baseball field.
Yeah, and then one.
Would that one have usable function?
Yeah.
It's a press box, but not concession.
Baseball has been using it for concessions against, would be better judgment, but.
Health department has to put it in.
So, section 4, equipment replacement. The school district is responsible for all equipment associated with their primary sports. Full list on table, section 12.
Now, I'm realizing we should delete the parentheses because the table is now been encompassed to the other table, the equipment inventory table on page 7.
That includes
Well,
field
that's
goals?
in section 12. So,
Oh, it says section 12,
Yeah.
not page 12, okay.
yes, section 12, so it's fine. But the thing that, so, this piece, my only disparity here is that this, what's spelled out here, it says, they're responsible for all equipment associated with their primary sports. Basically, that's one sentence, but then when you look at the table, they're not. You know, we're paying for 25% of baseball and softball, they're responsible for football,
We
but,
just need to,
so I would just maybe change that
is
wording.
responsible for equipment associated with their primary sports at the level indicated.
What about the field goals? Does the park district have to install the field goals?
I wouldn't even, I mean, I would just say, because it's not even, it doesn't necessarily need to be specific to the school district, it's the school district and SEPRD are responsible for all equipment associated,
Okay.
or well, all equipment replacements, see section 12.
So,
Because the only one that they're paying
You mean
100%
page
for
12?
is football. No, it's page 7. It's section 12. On page 7, or section 12 starts on page 6, but it's the table on page 7.
So a couple things that I would wonder, to me, when I read equipment, I assumed that meant like balls. And, like, the equipment you use to play with versus, I thought the thing on, in section 12, the chart on section 12, referred to facilities.
But I mean, this talks about bases, mounds, pitching rubbers, home plate. I mean, I don't know, I look at that as.
What do we call that stuff?
I mean, to me, that's
football
installed equipment,
sleds,
it's like part of
walking
the,
cage, pylons, yardage markers. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I agree, it's kind of semantics, but some of that is installed, but some of it's not. You know,
Yeah.
like the football equipment, the
So-
pylons, yardage markers, they're not.
how does that work now? Like, who pays for this? Like, how has that been working historically? For, like, I assume that they bring in their own, like, we're not buying uniforms, we're not buying,
Walking sleds?
yeah, who buys that stuff?
the school district, and they would continue to. I'm more worried that we're paying 25% of baseball and softball.
So why don't we say it's something like, should we, is this regarding equipment replacement, that each entity is responsible for purchase of equipment used for their own program?
I think that,
And
that's,
that shared facility,
Yeah.
shared equipment
That's a
and the
good point.
facility is defined in section 12.
Yeah.
I don't know, okay. I guess, I think it's gonna be confusing either way, personally, because I don't know where to draw the line, what is equipment and what is amenities or facilities, parts of the facility. Like,
But I would
and-
say
and-
personal equipment, you know, for players, is that?
The
I don't know if
batters,
that helps.
like foul poles are not personal equipment, like that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, is that, do they bring their own softballs? Does the
Yes.
school?
Yeah.
So we don't really have a reason to believe they're gonna change it up because we put put it in the IGA in a different category, right? So,
The chart in section 12 is mainly reflective of the current practice, if that makes sense. But it's spelled out. Now, financially, it changes the model a little bit because it obligates both parties at the percentage indicated. But essentially, this is what's been happening. Baseball, softball equipment, yes, we're on the hook for a little bit because we have a lot of renters and our own programs in the past that have used that space. Whereas football, we don't have football as a program, and we have never or hardly ever had a football rental. So it makes sense.
Does Seaside kids have a football program?
No.
They have a youth football program, but they don't use Broadway Field.
So
Probably
could
the school district is probably.
so is this accurate? Each entity is responsible for, equipment associated with their program. Equipment specifically associated with their program. Shared equipment at the Broadway Field Complex will be shared according to chart in section 12.
That's great.
Yes.
Okay.
That's as clear as, I think that's as
It's
clear as
as clear as we can be. I mean, it's gonna.
And maybe the lawyer
Yeah.
can use that up a little.
Okay.
But I think that gets to what we're trying to specify. Okay.
I had a question on the school district shall make payment to Sunset Empire at the conclusion of each season. And it says will be facilitated by the Seaside High School bookkeeper. Does that involve something related to Darren and Chris?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is for revenue.
you're down to section 6, yeah. So, yeah, what we'd like to have happen is that at the conclusion of the season, the sport that used the concession stand will reconcile their books and send us, the 25% of their revenues that we can use for keeping the concession stand up and getting the permits and all the other things that we take care of so that they can use it.
Has that been generally gross revenue or net revenue?
Gross.
What kind of concession records do they keep now? Is it gonna
They
be a
do
format,
that.
is a format gonna be created for that?
No, we have
She's
a
real good
format.
at tracking.
What we've struggled with is that, it hasn't been us actually, I'm sorry, it's different parties use the concession stand for different fundraising purposes, and it hasn't always been funneled through the bookkeeper at the district.
That is true.
So that's a goal or that's a standard that they'll be setting, and they'll work it out on there, and I have confidence in the folks to do that. We also would expect that, though, from Seaside kids when they use the concession stand or from our renters, which happens a lot. Looking at the school.
So I would maybe add other concessions, stands, vending are not permissible unless approved and ready by Broadway Field IGA Management Fund, and will be held to the same, standards below, just so the school district sees that we're gonna hold everybody to the same thing.
I mean, like, possibility of food trucks.
Okay.
Food truck, they park out on the street, you have to have a city permit to do that.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, because I don't remember seeing it, do we have like a sign or something around Broadway Field saying how people can rent?
We do, but the signs are significantly outdated, and I think the signs that are there now they're reflective of when the middle school is the middle school and that the field was closed these times and stuff like that. So I think a sign update will be essential.
Okay.
And that has been brought up. I mean, I think everybody thinks it's in everyone's best interest to have some clarity around signage, and I know it's been brought up that we also should ensure that that it's clear that Park and Rec, that it's a shared project, right? So we want to actually make sure that public and users know that it's a joint collaboration between Park and Rec and the Seaside.
Do we have a section on signage?
There is a section on signage, or
That's the sponsor
in the
section.
back, sponsorship and advertising, but this is the only, I think the only part that talks about signage of this nature. So if it needs to be bolstered, that might be.
I think we could, but it could also just be considered a supply thing if it's purchased.
I'm just thinking along the lines of like, who's approving the signs? I'm gonna assume it's the committee, like, or, you know, that says.
Good question, yeah.
Yeah, that says, yes, the sign fits with, I mean, I don't, what I don't wanna see us do is have Parks and Rec just start plastering signs everywhere, or the school district start plastering signs everywhere, and then we have this mishmash of
Yeah,
signage.
well, they do need to be vetted, I think. A lot of the signs, you imagine, you know, some, you know, liquor stores and, you know, cannabis
And
shops or
I,
whatever,
so it
wanting
says
to have
that.
signs out there, you know.
Underwear.
And maybe
Section
they're,
15 last sentence.
15.
And is there,
they need to be appropriate.
is there a place where the rules are posted?
Sponsorship.
That would be on the sign.
Right.
Yeah. There is now, but the rules are just a little bit out of date because it recognizes
Ads out
the
there.
time when the school district.
I mean,
doesn't-
there's approval by us, by the school district, and in compliance with the police.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of checks and balances.
Yeah, we might, you know, we might want to do some
Okay.
signs of our own, on our own building,
Perfect.
the parking lot, you can see them.
On this though, I might suggest rather than need the approval of SEPRD and the school district, I think it should say the committee. I feel like that's a thing that the
Yeah.
committee
Yeah,
can do.
I think so.
Can they though? I mean, they can't approve, they could review. But I think,
For signage,
I mean,
For
I mean, I
advertising, for
Skylar and
but that's the same as
sponsorship.
that's the same as SCPRD approving in the school district. I mean, it's not, we can't,
Well,
it doesn't matter, it's the same people.
But it's not though, because Seaside Kids is on there and, you know what I mean? Like, there's more people in the,
Okay.
So you're saying that.
I just think,
Because I'm trying to think of like, why does Seaside Kids need to approve, like, if the school district wants to post a sign?
I'm just thinking that this, I'm not saying that they have to approve. I'm just saying that I think the approver of something like this should say the group versus,
Yeah.
like, I don't think you're gonna be bringing sign, I don't.
But it does create an obstacle, because if that team is only meeting quarterly, it means we can't put up signs except for once. We have to wait until the group gets together. So if it's, for instance, if we're selling sponsorships for baseball season, we have to do that far in advance to get, if it's gonna be pushed over to that IGA committee. What I'm wondering is if there is a reason that we need to expand the committee's scope, when actually, are the decision makers really going to be the executive director and the superintendent that need to say, okay? Do you see what I mean? It could just slow it down, it could slow down our ability to bring in sponsorship.
Is there a cancellation policy, like if somebody decides to forfeit a game and somebody else wanted the field, is there something that allows
Do you have a
us
problem with
to
that?
reach out to that?
No, I think that's,
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say, in the past, at least, though, when a game is canceled, we often don't find out about it in time to work with another user. And it's usually canceled because of bad weather, and then that
Nobody
other
would
user
use it anyway.
might not want to use it either. So we have a run rental process. It's a rental process that exists for the SRC, for the Bob.
I will say, from the school district side, because I usually have to arrange coverage, because a lot of our coaches are teachers, those decisions are made literally out, they don't want to cancel. I mean, that's their like last resort. And it's either weather or lack of officials is another big one that we've been facing this year.
Are we on to section 7 or? Sorry.
Yes, we are on section 7. I'm almost done with section 7 review.
See, and I got caught up in what's the park versus the field. No, but it's.
Well, they're gonna fix all that. I mean, I truly get what you're saying, because I refer to Broadway Park and Broadway Field as two separate things, and it is two separate things, and all of this is just Broadway Field, not Broadway. We have nothing to do with Broadway Park.
Not even the parking lot.
Yeah, so you are correct, that needs to be fixed, but that's gonna be fixed by the lawyers, not us. One little semantic thing in this last little section, higher low site supervision, cleanup, and security during events. We are doing garbage service the entire time, correct? No matter,
Yes.
okay.
But,
So,
I mean, sorry, we are doing it the entire time, but it's not as if we have staff there
no, I know.
on Friday night to clean up garbage.
Correct, yes, I understand,
Okay.
but, I think this part where it says responsibility for site supervision, garbage service, conclusion of varsity football contests, and security during events will be SRPRDs during its time of use, and school districts during its time of use. Just makes it sound like, I
It's
think,
confusing.
yes,
Yeah. Okay, I think the hope was to have responsibility fall on the right people for during their time, and also share that we will be doing cleanup and garbage service, you know,
so I would maybe suggest,
all the days of the year except for home varsity football contests.
I would maybe suggest removing the garbage service part as a separate sentence. So just the responsibility for site supervision and security during events will be SRPRDs during its time and school districts during its time. SRPRD will be responsible for garbage service,
Yeah.
period.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it, yeah, not to be, but that, I think we'll clear that part up. Okay, any other questions on 7, or are we moving on to 8? Moving on to 8. Okay.
So the only thing I wrote was the scoreboards, and aren't those listed in this big long list of
They are.
equipment?
They should be on the chart in section 12.
And this chart in section 8, Skylar, it's saying Broadway Field retripping project, it's showing 50/50, is that?
Yeah, I don't know why it says that.
Okay.
So the correct percentage should be 33.
33 and 66,
Yeah.
33, that's about 33.3 and 6.6.
That's big.
Okay.
There's that paragraph where the school district, let's see, under section 8, the third paragraph. The school district will, or maybe that should be shall. That's wordsmithing.
Yeah, that's lawyer.
But a shall is a promise. I mean, what if the school district just backed out of the idea, oh, yeah, we're not gonna remodel, we're not gonna use those 2 rooms at all, so forget that. How long would we sit on that before?
I mean, that would be a violation of the IGA,
What are the penalties if you violate the IGA?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you force somebody to court if that's where we get to, but I'm assuming it's
But
in their
will and
interest.
shall are.
It is in their interest.
That second paragraph says shall, why do they go to will and the other?
But I say let's leave it to
The
that.
next one says will.
All right.
I'm
Fine.
out of curiosity, for
Generally,
the
you know.
locker room, do we need to spell anything more about the locker room?
So we did talk about this, and we actually asked, and we had some dialogue, Mike, I think you were on those too, where we talked about the cost, the projected cost, and whether we should include those. And we actually, I think there was some guidance that we probably should not include actual numbers in the IGA and just indicate a commitment to cover
Because of
the
this,
cost.
we're estimating something.
We're just estimating per square foot, and we got some, their contractor came back with, and our construction management company came back, and what I feel really comfortable about is those numbers were set out loud. They are extremely high numbers, and there was no balking from the school district. They're like, yep, we are gonna cover that. So I feel like, that's what I was worried about, is that we might be on completely different pages about what the cost of the remodel might be, and that somebody might think that we're gonna go in there with a can of paint and, you know, and
Right.
some whatever, and a scrub brush, and that would constitute remodeling. And we have this other vision that is probably gonna be a deeper remodel, and I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page.
Much cheaper.
Yes, it's much deeper.
$400, I think, what are they gonna, $400 a square foot?
It's $400 a square foot, I think, and.
That's almost as much as the first one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was like $2 million,
Jewelry department.
right, wasn't it, something like that?
High-end store.
Right, so it's not an
In the old days.
insignificant cost.
I used to spend that
So
much
I feel like we have a commitment from the
on
citizens
magnets.
to cover
Oh
that.
my gosh, that was my first job.
I used to
My
make
concerns when we get down to that part,
I,
because
my
it's
first
such an
job was
ancient
in-
building, is, you know, with their contractors being in the building doing those renovations, what happens
Oh,
if
we
they
don't,
damage
we don't know if
some of
it's their
parts?
contractors. They could
Okay.
just pay,
They could just
it could be,
pay.
we don't have a
Okay.
plan yet about who's gonna do
Right.
the construction, right?
Okay, all right, sounds good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on section 10?
We're finishing section 8, so, you know, it's good they're including the moving of the sunny hunt. Hopefully we find a spot.
Where's section 9?
Yeah.
I don't know, I
The
think
number is
section
not-
9, it must be this chart.
Oh, it's just off.
Section 9 is not,
There's a lot of moving parts here, people.
They'll fix it, lawyers will fix that.
Section 9,
Section 9 doesn't exist.
blah, 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 done.
Except, you know, we're now, we fixed that ratio.
Okay.
It's interesting, we've got a chart for those aspects. Why isn't the, I don't know, the locker rooms, not part of the,
I
some of it?
think
Why
that's
not,
a,
why not?
Oh, that is a
Locker
good-
rooms on that
yeah.
chart.
I think actually putting that in would be a good idea.
Yep,
Put the locker rooms on
Yep.
that construction item.
I think that's a good point.
That kind of,
I would also
canonized.
not, is this your chart? No, I would just, I would put SEPRD over here and put the school, so it's school district.
Thank you, because that's the same thing on another page.
Yeah.
Just keep it, because when
Yeah.
people look down, they'll see this is school district.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not, it's, yeah, I agree, it should
Yeah.
all
I would,
be,
I would
Switch
put
those
the
around.
columns,
just swap them.
yep.
Yeah. Just move the tax dollars around.
Yes,
Oh, my goodness. So, are we on 10 now?
yes.
We're adding the locker
So
rooms, right?
the second line, what how did you wordsmith it before where it said, where we broke out? In the other section where we wrote out.
Yeah, I would strike this, because it's redundant, we already said it once, why say it again?
Yeah,
But also strike the next paragraph, because we now know that we are not going to need until,
Okay.
What's an infill?
except the little rubber,
we don't have to do until?
the technology has improved so significantly that there won't be significant infill displacement in the way that there is now. It won't go home
So
in
the-
people's shoes and,
Did we buy a machine to put the little thing and we don't need that anymore?
we will need a different machine, but we
Oh,
will
of course.
not need.
Well, we can sell that to somebody else that has this fabulous skill.
Didn't we discuss that infill, material that the turf installer provides that for the life of the field?
If
No,
we
we don't
ever
have
do
to
need
buy
it, which they say that we won't, they'll provide it. What we will need to do is redistribute the infill from the high traffic areas, but that's just grooming or sweeping. It's not adding rubber like we've had to do before.
This may be a distraction, but what happens if they're gonna start construction, returfing the existing fields, and they're gonna remove the infill? What happens to that? Does it get reused and reinstalled, or how do they?
It doesn't get used at our
It's rubber,
projects.
isn't it?
I guess maybe they have, I would assume that they have probably somewhere for it to go and get repurposed. But
Vulcanized?
For each year?
Yeah, like what's the
it's 2%.
2%?
You make lawn furniture.
I don't know,
Remember, we can revisit this.
So we're getting rid of the first two paragraphs and the third one.
Only 5,000.
The middle two
$5,000.
paragraphs. The equipment listed is getting rid of in the school district.
That's why we put that cap in there, annual cap is $5,000 that we're covering, and it's renegotiable, so I think we're covered.
Okay. Do we need the part about the Sunny Hunt? That's redundant.
Maybe someplace else?
Yeah, it's right here. The school, it's in section 8, the school district on the
Yeah,
bottom.
it's redundant, you're right, you can take it out.
Here it says Broadway Park Complex, again, that should be field.
Yeah, they get to figure that out. There are 4 different names.
Yep, they're gonna, I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna tell them that they need to do that.
I was curious about all of this, Skylar, and how will this inject, affect our insurability? What is our cost of insurance for an agreement like this?
We're being added to the school districts. You know what it says?
Isn't that what the?
We will both have the Broadway Field Complex.
We already have a level of insurance to cover this?
We do. The current IGA requires all 3 parties to have
CGL?
the field.
Somewhere it said we were being added to theirs.
Yeah, so it says that the school district will name SEPRD as an additional insured.
Oh, yeah.
And it says the same under our responsibilities.
In the city.
That we're gonna name, oh, we are, okay. Okay.
So did we keep the first paragraph of section 10 and get rid of those last 2? And it's okay about the infill?
We
Just
got
get
rid of
that?
paragraphs 2 and 3 in
Yep.
section 10.
Section 10 got shorter.
Okay.
What
I mean,
about this, is this,
And we're getting rid of the Sunny Hunt
are
thing.
we on section 11?
No.
Finishing 10.
No,
We're finishing 10.
And
I'm looking, I'm
which are we?
curious about section 11.
The Seaside School District will fund an in-kind replacement of the Sunny Hunt Community Gardens because that is already stated on page 4 at the bottom.
Okay.
So we're getting rid of that, it's duplicate.
Add that to construction list. Anyway, I was just looking ahead to section 11, the SEPRD will work to add enhanced security measures throughout the field, that should be fields, and amenities, including cameras. So,
What other enhanced security measures
so what
besides cameras?
are the enhanced security measures
And how
other
much
than
is
the
that gonna
idea of
cost?
cameras, which, that was discussed at the design meeting, I think, too.
How much is that gonna cost?
What's that?
How much?
Don't know. You know, we've gotten grants for cameras in the past from Energy Trust and, even, USDA. I think we have some cameras. But I don't know,
I mean, isn't that kind of standard now?
somebody's gotta monitor the cameras.
Yeah, we have a system for that. I mean,
Just adding to
what
our-
our counterpart in this agreement has asked for is an increased security presence by us. I mean, we could do that a few different ways. I've tried to word this pretty generally. I think cameras would be a great starting point, but we're
We're not
investing,
round-the-clock security guard type place, are we?
no, but I mean,
Should the press boxes be a location for any cameras that would be observing the bleachers, you know, that went for the football fields or,
yeah. Yeah, I think the hope would be to have a camera at the press boxes, and we have one at the Hirsch facility now.
But I don't think we want to line all that out here, because it needs to
I don't.
be taken care of by our tech team to
Yeah.
figure out what the
Well,
best use
the
is.
management team.
So my only question
Probably
is,
the field management team would give us direction.
my only question is, okay, so we're gonna work to add enhanced security measures. Where's the funding for that coming from?
Yeah,
Is that part
exactly.
of our, is
Yeah.
that part of our fee? But that, I mean, it could be, you know, in a huge initial,
It was a desire, but there's nothing that requires us to do that.
Well, there's nothing that said, like, anything, any of the things that require any expenses in here, to me, are bound by, we have the $30,000, the $29,900 fee for our staff, and up to $5,000 of the initial cost, and anything extra comes out of that the $45,000 fund.
We're
I mean-
responsible somewhere, and we're supposed to maintain the scoreboards too. Those can be, this is some.
But that's what the $45,000 fund is for, is
Well,
for
the whole part
extra.
got divided,
Scoreboards are 50/50,
yeah.
Yeah,
but right now they're 100% SEPRD.
I don't see where the scoreboard's listed in here.
It's over
They're
here,
they're on the table.
over here, right there,
Oh, okay,
scoreboard,
yeah.
50/50,
50/50, huh? Huh.
as opposed to 100.
I don't know why we're paying for 50% of the scoreboards. Do we use scoreboards for our events?
Because when we rent the field out, and we offer scoreboards as an amenity,
Oh, okay.
we're obligated.
Mhm.
I think to have that as a part of the rental package, right?
Yeah, yeah, if we're gonna advertise it, we have to support it. I get that.
I also think, I mean, there's gonna be 3 brand-new scoreboards, and they're gonna be easily maintained for the duration
Hmm.
of our agreement, I would anticipate.
I don't know, I feel like that should be something.
So on the first paragraph of section 11, can we change the appendix? There are no appendix, or exhibit. It's exhibit C, for maintenance duties.
Yep.
I don't know, okay, so if we're back on the security measures thing, and we're not 100% sure what we're gonna do, I feel like then we should just not have the including, like, let's just say that we're gonna work to add enhanced security measures throughout the field and amenities, period.
Sounds fine. The cameras were included because that was the one specific request that the school district gave to us.
Well, I think that's because the city actually,
Protecting their asset.
The city said that we had to have cameras?
well, it was brought up during the city council meeting as a concern that, about how are we gonna monitor that stuff is okay, and so that was I think the school district is responding to
There.
the city.
Okay. All right.
But we can just say in amenities, that's fine.
I don't.
Like I said, the vaguer the better, I think, on this, because it's really, it would be preemptive to say, this is what we're gonna do, when we don't even know what the park is gonna look like and how it's gonna function and flow right now. I don't know. I know I have drawings, but
Yeah.
until we start seeing the people and the traffic flows and the usage, it's hard to say.
So, you know, if we did have cameras, do we need to put that in on this list, on page 7 somewhere?
That was,
Essentially, I mean, it could be added. This list is, I think, to tackle the things that we know are part of the field, or will be a part of the construction process. And again, this is it's an editable document, even after it's agreed on. I think it could.
to a comment made at the very beginning of this meeting, that was so long ago, that we have to have a motion to dissolve the previous agreement. It says right here, this agreement dissolves the previous intergovernmental agreement, so by accepting this one,
But that's just for the, you're on section 12.
yeah.
That's for just the HFTF, IGA.
Oh, gotcha.
That's what that refers to.
Okay.
Now, we could add something that says this agreement dissolves the previous IGA
Yeah,
for the Broadway
I
field.
thought it said that on the first page.
I think that would be prudent, just so it's super clear in here that this is taking place.
Even if we do a separate vote, it's
Yeah.
probably good to have it in both places, yeah.
Yep. So somewhere on this, but, what's the word?
Dissolves.
Dissolves, thank you. Okay, are we moving on to 12? I sort of did, sorry.
Oh, I wanted to ask, where is that northwest parking lot? Is that where we were looking at T-ball?
That's the,
It's
next
the
to
north
the,
end of the
Sunset Rec
SRC.
Center.
Yes, that is where we were looking at T-ball. That is where T-ball is actually happening right now.
Mhm.
So, is this okay to park there?
Well, so they're putting in that paved lot instead of T-ball field because they need more parking and the fire department wants access.
Yeah.
And I was very against that because of T-ball, but Sunset Kids, or Seaside Kids, I'm combining things, Seaside Kids is building another field, at Lighthouse Church, and it's almost, to my understanding, it's almost done. So, I think those teams will have a place to go, so I'm less grumpy about losing.
I used to play T-ball at Cartwright Park, I haven't noticed
They-
they set up to do that.
Oh, they
I noticed
do.
the bleachers there, but I haven't seen a backstop or any action there.
Well, they've never had a backstop.
And considering right now, right now, this is Wildlife Prevention Month for fire. One of the rules is don't park on grass.
Well, it's gonna be a paved
So
for the fire truck.
I just was sad to see the T-ball go, but if
Yeah.
it's someplace else, it's too bad it's not one group, but I understand.
Yeah.
That's what I was afraid of when I read this.
Too bad they can't bring zero anymore either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that guy Marley's still trying to figure out what to do, he's got the whole property fenced off, all kinds of room for it.
Well, and I hadn't been so involved with all the newspapers until I was trying to scramble the votes. And I'm like, what do you mean he wanted to make that a house?
What's Exhibit
He wants
B?
to get a single family residence in there.
Exhibit B is the scheduling matrix.
Oh, there it is, okay.
To help us,
Got it.
help quantify, or I guess,
Residential.
quantify the
Yeah.
outline, how we will schedule the HFTF and the
Okay,
codify.
So that's still 12, right?
yeah.
Okay. Are we adding codify?
No, oh, you're just talking.
Okay.
How are we allocating space?
Sorry, where are we?
Just back at the parking.
Oh, it's understood that this parking lot will have a gate on it, and we, the district, make the choice of to, when the gate is open or not. And I
Okay.
think there's one discussion that we will have at some point about management of that part of the property. But basically what it's saying is that during the softball season, we will keep that gate open, and it will be available to softball players, coaches, fans, participants there.
Okay.
And is that any time during when the school, when the Sunset, Preparation Center has kids in the classroom? Does that
It's in a different part of the property, so I
Yeah.
think that works out well.
Well, will they come in from the back end?
So they come in from the Broadway side.
Okay.
Yeah.
They won't be driving that access road.
On the equipment replacement repairs, are we really thinking that we're responsible for half of the netting?
I don't,
Yeah, why?
I have questions about, I have heard questions about the netting.
It was a big deal at the city council's meeting, and they actually are put in as part of their requirement of approval, increased netting. And they also put in the requirement that it's up all year. Now, there's some questions about whether or not that can be renegotiated, so that, because I have concerns about keeping netting up in the middle of winter. Yeah.
well, I can speak to that,
Okay.
because there's been an update from the project management team that, the netting that they have selected is, it will last, whether it's up or down, the same amount of time, and actually the manufacturer recommends that it stays up.
Okay.
And he's gonna send a sample to the school district, but he provided us all this other information, so I'm very confident in the netting staying up and not us having to worry about removing it or taking it down and putting it back up.
But do we feel like 50%, I'm just afraid that cost of that netting may be pretty substantial?
Sure.
So is the point of the netting, I assume, to keep houses from being hit?
Yeah,
And
and people.
property.
Okay.
Keep the neighbors
So I have heard, not having played said sports with a bat and a ball, that most of the balls that are being hit over to the houses, they're going straight up and over and down, and that there's no amount of netting that's going to catch them, versus like an overhang.
So there's gonna actually be both. There'll be an overhang that's provided as part of the new backstops for both the baseball and softball field. But, as part of the site plan, there will also be perimeter netting for balls that are not caught in the overhang.
On the north
Okay.
side.
And it will run basically from home plate of softball field all the way to home plate of baseball field.
That's gonna look lovely.
Again, the manufacturer has assured us that the netting, the coil is so small that from anywhere over 15 to 20 feet away, you won't even be able to tell. And that's how it is at like a baseball game too, unless you're in like the first, like a major league game, unless you're in like the first couple rows, you don't even really see the netting.
Okay.
Watching the action.
Okay.
All right, yes,
But
so back
I
to
would
flip,
be,
why
I
are we
would be
paying for
amenable
50%?
to changing it. I'm not, I mean, sorry,
Yeah,
I
it's not
wish I
hard.
could say that maybe I remember, maybe Susan said, we think it should be 50-50, that could have happened, or maybe I just put it as 50-50.
I would argue that because we are paying for 25% of baseball and softball equipment items, that is a baseball and softball equipment item. That is not needed for any other sport.
Yeah, true.
Right. Received.
Because I'm sure that is very cheap.
Okay.
And I would just ask if we can just, like, when people look down the list, school districts should all be in one
Yeah.
space, and Sunset Empire should be in one. I think it's easier to read, and because you get onto the second page and you switch everything as well.
We noticed that draft is different from the draft that you got marked up.
You know what? This one is confusing, so,
It just runs a little differently.
yeah, so. there you
Okay,
go.
section 13.
Yep.
I got my stuff with notes too. I didn't read.
I'm just worried that you guys would shoot me for all these marks.
What's the GMAX rating system?
GMAX test is a test that you can do on turf fields to verify that the turf is safe and in good condition for playing. We have a contractor that comes out and they basically do a depth test with a special tool to rate, and that provides some safety, my brain's not working, certification or some safety assurances that players that fall will not be negatively impacted.
Is this cost part of our funds already, or is this additional?
I guess, I don't know. Right now, previous to this, the district has borne that cost solely.
Do we not have any idea how much that costs for them to come out and do an annual inspection?
It's been usually around $1,500 to $2,000.
The school district or us?
Us.
We've borne this cost?
Yes.
Oh, so I think this should be allocated, that the cost of that annual inspection will be shared on, at the 66.33%.
It says it'll share.
Well, I'm just wondering, it just says we'll share costs of this inspection with SEPRD coordinating the work, which is fine and agreed. I think it should be spelled out how much. But I'm just, is this part of the money is already allocated? Is this part of the bigger, the maintenance, the 45,000? Is this extra money?
So again, I would assume it's kind of like the items in the chart, which to me, let's say, let's just take one of these items that is shared. Let's say we have a scoreboard break.
Okay.
That money is not coming out of the 30,000 or the 29,900. This is us, we're gonna go get a quote for the broken scoreboard, and we're gonna say to the school district, it's $4,000 to replace the scoreboard. For the IGA, you're responsible for 2,000, we're responsible for
Now,
the other.
the IGA committee could then, just, which is
Yes,
practically the same people, could say, look, we have a whole bunch of extra money
Exactly.
sitting in our account.
Exactly.
Let's allocate it to this.
Let's use
budget
it for that.
So we could do that, but it gives us a backdrop of who's gonna be responsible to make, if that money isn't sitting there. Yeah.
Okay.
but I'm good with spelling out who
Yeah, I think it
does the
should be.
percentage for the GMAX.
Because everything else is spelled out.
Well,
And that sounds like a fairly significant.
I mean, that's what it is
investment
there, right?
Um,
It's already spelled out.
You mind if I jump back to page 8, under that last schedule we were looking at, under the equipment?
anyway. Yep, go ahead.
I had a question, looking at, I guess it's line 2 on the formatting, the HF, the Hirsch Family Training Facility items, okay? What are items, and why does Park District
Yeah.
This,
supposed to budget 50% of what items?
this should be external.
Well, I think, so to be clear, this line was drafted when I think we believed that we were going to,
Seaside Kids is.
we were gonna be writing Seaside Kids or excluding them from this agreement. And so I think we need to figure out how to spell out.
So what you told me is that we are responsible for the external things on that building?
Exterior plus concession stands. and-
Exterior is painted
Okay.
steel.
So can we just put that, exterior,
Yeah, exterior.
100% exterior, what is it?
Exterior items plus concession stand plus restrooms plus
Yeah.
storage.
I would spell that out.
Exterior, I want to know.
So this area that says including softball, baseball, soccer, football, press boxes is all related to the press boxes, right?
Correct.
Okay. So,
With the HF, TF, that's
That's
I'm just wondering about what that.
Again,
exterior
maybe
items,
Why do we up for 50%?
restrooms.
So I just changed it, so what it says now is 100% exterior items, concessions, restrooms, and storage. School district, all remaining items.
I think,
School district plus Seaside Kids, maybe, I don't know if you want.
Well, we can't write them into
I know,
it, so.
that's what I mean, it's
Yeah,
like,
so I don't,
it gets a little,
we can negotiate, there's no problem with somebody else stepping in and paying. In addition,
So all,
we can't beholden them,
So
so
just
they're
to-
not a signatory.
to be clear, the soccer equipment is that top line about the goals, corner flags, and netting on each end of field.
right.
yep,
And so HTFT, or whatever, just has to be spelled out for those things that Skylar
Yeah.
just mentioned.
yep.
And that's 100% of us.
Exterior items plus
It's,
concessions.
well,
and storage.
it's 50% Parks and Rec, 50% school district, which I'm fine with. Because we use
Okay.
that building a lot for programming and,
We're using, the park district's using the first family facility.
I feel like we
We
do.
are using, I mean, we're not using the batting cage lanes necessarily, but we're generating revenue from the concession stand.
Oh, well,
We're
concessions,
maintaining,
yes.
we're maintaining the restrooms, we have storage, we have our equipment stored there.
Okay.
And we are renting the HFTF, we are using it some for programs and such, but not much.
There's no HVAC in that building, so you have to,
There is actually
there's no air
heating
in the main room.
There is heating, there's a radiated heated
There's
floor.
no air conditioning on the north
Well,
coast.
they have cable heating in the slab, but there's no air change or fans or,
Right.
unless they open the door, which I expect.
Are we going to need turf maintenance equipment?
We are, yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna need to purchase a different piece of turf maintenance equipment at some point in the future, so.
Okay.
Is that a large expense, and do we need to, like, would that be come out of that out of that
School
$45
district should
fund?
pay for the equipment, and we just operate it.
Yeah,
Well, and then I vaguely heard, which is not necessarily part of this, that, was that you that was saying that we're working on something to maintain their new field up there
we sent a
with our
proposal,
equipment?
to them and, haven't gotten, yes or no.
Okay.
But I think, it makes a lot of sense just from a community perspective, because if we have the equipment and the knowledge, and from what I understand, the school district isn't maintaining a lot of their outdoor spaces, like they're not
Correct.
providing grounds maintenance right now, they're mowing, stuff like that isn't internal, so, I don't know. It was just a thought of a resource that we could offer to them and possibly, expand a position that we have in the district, maybe a full-time position, because now we're maintaining a little more space and generate that revenue through a contract with them.
So do you want to leave it as 75% us?
For maintenance equipment, this is just referring to Broadway, the Broadway
Yeah,
field
yeah.
complex, so I guess I feel like, this is a fair split, but if the board would like it to be 50-50, I understand.
Do you have any approximation of what turf maintenance equipment runs?
So we just bought that stuff that we need to buy new ones because it was different.
Yeah, the two pieces of equipment that we have now are both around $10,000.
Each?
And I would expect in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, but it sounds like we will only need one piece of equipment for the product that we'll have on the field.
I mean, that seems like a controllable cost that we can put into our budget,
Yeah.
you know, it's coming, so.
Okay. I'm fine.
Especially if we can recover it in the cost of it.
I like what it says at the very bottom, all other items not included can be added with the managed, to be
Yeah.
deliberated at a committee.
Yeah, I saw that too, I thought that made sense.
And again, I just switched school districts
Anyway.
and Sunset Empire.
It's
So
like
that-
a place to a living document that needs to be
Yeah.
used every year.
Well, just keeping everything.
For the field surface replacement, should we, or do we need to spell out anything about like, funds can come from the, money can come from the fund, or
if there's money left in the fund, we could spend the money.
Right, like, do we
You know,
need to
but-
spell that out?
No, because the IGA, it says it up front, the IGA Management Committee is responsible for, reviewing and making recommendations regarding the budget.
Okay.
So that's, they can choose.
Should there be a separate fund, like the Broadway Field Fund, which we pay in that, so we basically accrue the cost?
It is, that's in
the
your-
money
Yeah, that's
for
in
the field
section,
replacement, that's what we're doing.
yeah, that's in section 3.2. I did say that we should call that
Okay.
as like, we should call it the Broadway Field
Maintenance and replacement fund.
BF Maintenance,
Yeah,
whatever it is, Maintenance Fund.
you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we should actually name that in there so that we all know to refer to it as that, yeah. Great. Nice job. Did we get through it all?
No,
Oh, we're not? Oh, I
Well, we
forgot.
have,
Six
there are
pages.
14, 15,
Yeah.
16 plus, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on exhibits.
Apparently there were 8 write-ins so far.
Really?
Well, according to that.
Well,
so far.
congratulations.
Did you,
Somebody sent me a screenshot.
So I'm just questioning, field names, so are they considering naming the softball field
I'm
already?
still voting for
We gotta
Nike.
name it after Stout Lions.
Nike.
you want to name?
I will name this whole thing Nike.
You know,
If they
Put the
come in
logo on
and
your forehead?
I'm all for it.
Lions Field.
So Sue, this just basically indicates that if we are going to have a name on the field, then it will be agreed on by both of us. Just so
Okay.
one of us can't go out roguely and find a sponsor.
I mean, I just wondered if there
Nike.
was something like, well, I mean, I still think we should honor Stubby Lions, like
I
with the football
understand.
field.
We can have a separate discussion, but there's concerns, not about Mr. Stubby, who's, you know, an awesome person, but there's a lot of agencies and public entities that are moving away from naming things after individuals. It can be, not that it is in this instance, it can be problematic, it can be damaging to some of the people that might have interacted with that person.
Did the city grant in the lease, did they grant the right to the school district to name the field other than Broadway Field? Because it's named Broadway Field and everything else. Do they have a right to rename the field?
Like I said,
The
I
city
haven't,
usually would have the only
I haven't
right to
gone
name
through
the
that,
field.
but in my conversations with the city and the school about finding a sponsor for the field, they have not voiced any concern about having a sponsor for the field, be it Nike or Stubby Lions or
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to-
whoever it was.
We don't have to like vet that out at this point,
No,
what
we
this is
don't.
basically
No,
saying
no.
is that there has to be agreement, that it will be
Yeah.
fully vetted at another time
Yes,
when it comes up.
I just wondered if they already had something in
I
mind.
was wondering too.
Yeah, we had something in
We're
the
gonna put a big S in the middle of the field.
There is gonna be an S on the field.
Yeah.
And it could be for
For
Sunset
Sunset,
Empire,
for Sunset.
could be for Sioux,
Seaside.
could be for Seaside.
School. Lots of
Yeah,
things start with that.
that's just what you want.
Um,
That's Sue's field.
Just real quick, the amendment and agreement
Depends on your point of
review,
view.
SEPRD and school district shall jointly review this agreement
Okay,
for
my
3 years.
I have a start with my initial on it.
You're right.
I know.
What?
Something popped up on my phone and started talking, sorry.
I'm just
That's
curious.
different than the role of the committee is to review the annual budget draft and the amendments approved. So the committee is not reviewing this document every year.
They could, it's up to them.
But I mean, that's being spelled out, we're reviewing it 3 years and then every 5 years.
I guess I view this review that's in section 16 as the formal review, and that would happen solely between the signing parties or boards or whoever.
Okay.
And this is in place now.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas the management committee review would be quarterly, every year, maybe a little less formal, right?
Okay.
And it's recommendations. The management committee doesn't actually have the authority to make changes, right?
Right.
They can only make recommendations.
So we were fine with number 15, section 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this one, and then the original term, this agreement shall commence blah, 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 and will terminate blah, blah, blah. But then it's will renew for one additional 30-year term. What?
Can I ask a question about the sponsorship and advertising? I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
No,
Sorry, I
moving on.
glossed over that. Go ahead, Mike.
If there is sponsorship, let's say there's advertising.
Who gets
You
the
know,
money?
with the LCYSA, we used to sell billboards to help support the league. $500 a billboard, it cost anyone to have a sign on the soccer field. So, but if we're collecting fees to have advertising on the fields, why doesn't that money from the advertising go into the field fund?
I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
You know what I mean?
But I think that,
I think advertising should pay that way and support not only the school district, but the park district.
so I think we could agree to that. What I'm wondering is if there were some signs up, maybe even on a temporary basis for, like, the Easter egg hunt that might have just some signs. That's not going to,
Yeah.
that funds
Well,
Easter egg
people-
hunt. So I don't know that we need to get so,
Long term?
but well, it's outlined here around permanent.
I just said that, yeah.
So I'm,
Well, what is a permanent sign, you know?
so, and I don't think there's a huge,
It should be an annual fee for that sign to remain.
I mean, boosters, the school district boosters, it's like,
Happens now works well, I think,
Yeah.
because they put the signs up for the Friday night games, and
Seems
the
like
night
it
have
used to have lots of
businesses,
signs out there.
and then they take them down. And then when we have the egg hunt, we put our signs up, and then we take them down. And maybe there's a place for a larger sponsor to come in, and we'll say, we'll leave this up for 6 months, for every day, every night, or something.
and that would be agreed upon.
Well,
Yes.
the scoreboards could actually have sponsors' names on them too.
yeah,
and
like they
they're
do in the school.
talking about a big, you got, Knudsen used to have his name on one of his scoreboards.
So is this okay though, as is, I mean, this doesn't
Yeah, it's
change
fine,
much,
you know,
okay.
yeah, it's just spawning discussion on it from my head. You know, I figure, let's throw it out there, I've got nothing to lose, you know? You never know where the ideas are
I
gonna
know,
come
but
from.
I have to go to dinner.
Comment
Yeah,
about,
I gave up on the idea of dinner tonight, I'm still having heartburn from lunch.
I'm not allowed to eat.
Okay,
So
are we-
on section 16, is the comment about a 30-year term, is there any issue with that? With, the
I'm just
second?
wondering what it means.
Right,
so, like-
it just seems like a long time, and then the next paragraph,
I am 100% confident that this was just ripped from the current IGA, so it's probably something that a lawyer drafted, and I'm
What is,
hoping that.
what is the term of the lease?
It's,
15 years, I think.
15 years, yeah.
So actually, that's not a bad
We
idea.
should mirror that.
It probably
Let's go
should.
with the lowest common denominator.
I just have to say, like, I know we are under a time crunch to approve this before next week, but this is not a done document.
So, my feeling on it is that the document isn't done, but if the ideas remain intact with the revisions that we've indicated, and it's formatted better, like, I think the board could potentially approve or provide authority, like we have before on other things.
Skylar.
Yeah, to Skylar to sign off. My concern is that they come back and say no way to something we talked about here, or if the understanding is way off, then it'll have to come back before the board. But
And I do think, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we're being fairly thorough and we're pretty much on the same page with, like,
Yeah.
all of what we are saying.
right?
So I do, as soon as we get done with this, I do think we could say,
okay, so I make a motion.
Well, can
I'd
I
like
ask
to-
a question first?
Okay.
we're not done yet though, so let's
Oh,
get
okay.
ready.
Okay.
I was commenting on the fact that, like,
Yeah.
we're not done yet.
Well, I just want to ask what, on the page 10, it says the prevailing party, and I just don't know what that means legally. Is that,
I mean, who wins?
who, the winner?
Prevailing, would be,
All right.
who wins the decision? We
That's
have a
pretty
right-
standard contract language,
Yeah, I just didn't know what that
and they'll
meant.
fix it if it's not appropriate, if it's not modern.
Do you have any questions about the exhibits?
I thought they were really well done, and I did. I just didn't know what Broadway feels.
Oh, that's great, I appreciate it. So
Yes.
there hasn't been a
But I
lot of
did, I
very well,
really-
very well done on pages tonight, so.
I like this word, contemporaneous. That's a good one.
What's that?
Okay, can I make a motion now?
Hold on, I wanna finish.
Where's contemporaneous? I need to find
The
that.
IGA contains all the terms and conditions agreed upon by the parties, no oral or written agreement, either before or contemporaneous.
It's definitely not written by me, so. I can 100%
Right about
I don't even know what that means.
No, hold on, we're not ready for motion yet.
Well, you want me to look it up?
What are you looking up?
Contemporaneous.
I just think it's a fantastic word.
What word
It's
is
not
that?
when you,
I-
contemporaneous.
I don't know what it means.
Extemporaneous, I think it's like,
At the same time. Isn't
It's
it?
not.
Isn't it contemporary, like contemporary? Like,
extemporaneous, it means
Existing
like
or
off the
occurring,
cuff. It
it
means that
says
something should come up.
existing or occurring in the same period of time.
For the field maintenance, geez, Levi has worked on this, right?
Extemporaneous,
Correct.
yeah, time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he feels pretty good about his, like, hours and whatnot. Like,
I think we do. I mean, this is new for us. There's
Yeah,
like some
we can
new stuff.
This could be
This is codifying what the school district has said, hey, this is what we want the field to look like, and this is why we're paying you that money.
Yeah.
This is the standard. And so then we worked out the budget of how many hours it's gonna take, and, yeah, I think it sounds great, but I think there's gonna be some adjustment as we move forward.
And it's clearly, the old IGA is,
We also added, on that last page, we also added in, accounting for time that it takes to schedule the field.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't look like much, but, and it often isn't, but those weeks where we get the schedule and putting all that in and, working with the coaches and stuff to try to adjust the schedule is.
and we do,
So on each of these, A and B, there's the two little asterisks. Is that just, what is the asterisk supposed to refer to?
The asterisks refer to the fact that, when it's not reserved, when it's not those dark, mine is black and white, so it's that dark section, that's for school district. And when it's not in that section that we get to decide, the district gets to decide, we might have a program out there on part or all of the field, or we might say it's open play right now, or we might say, oh, we have this user group that wants to have a soccer game or, something, and they're gonna rent it. And we're taking ownership of balancing those interests for the best use of the community.
So do the asterisks go like to each spot?
No, so asterisk refers to the non-school district hours only.
The green?
For you, it's green, I think for me, it's,
Oh.
yes.
so there's
Well, I was just wondering
Street
where
Kids and there's SEPRD,
Right.
and basically,
And there's others, right?
well, but I mean, I think what she's asking is like,
Are you looking at the Hirsch one, or?
Well, I'm looking at both, because I just wondered what the asterisks go to.
So I think what Sue is trying to say is like, when you look at this, this part up here is kind of saying like, oh, there's gonna be a white
Yeah.
section that's not designated. But when you look down below, there is no non-designated, it's all designated.
Correct. But the non-designation, the designation of SEPRD means it's non-designated for school district, which means by and large, it's either gonna be
Got it.
community use, et cetera.
So anything that's green
Right.
is this, that it can be designated for whatever, Parks and Rec decides.
I get that, I just wondered why we have the asterisk there.
Because I'm trying to show that there's there has been feedback from city council and from other community members that the field is not actually accessible for the general public. So this matrix, I think, shows that both the HFTF and Broadway Field, there's many hours available for the general public to use, whether they choose to rent the field formally through SEPRD or just use it walking up for pickup games or for individual use.
Is there, any sort of accountability for
Yeah.
those rentals for like, the coaches who are just like, hey, we're gonna meet?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a standard, generally speaking, if it's a coached activity, or if it's, I think it's 6 or more, we try to work with the party and tell them, actually, you should be renting the field and you should coordinate that rental through us. And there are people that script the rules and they're quite good at it because they come after hours and figure it out, but
Was changed.
generally speaking, it's like, oh, there's worse things for people to probably be doing.
You're looking at the old one.
I'm just thinking like,
So it's interesting.
athletics,
The new draft
formal
is eliminated
season,
since
school
that
district athletics, they're like, okay, we're gonna, practice on Sundays.
It's
Well,
about
on here, it says Sundays are available,
That
but
has-
then it'll look
I don't know
like,
why.
Well,
to
okay, no,
people in the
no,
public,
if you
how
go,
it
Yeah.
looks, because
if you go
they're
to,
on there. Does that
if you go to
make-
B,
It does make
see, this is
sense.
I think that could also be addressed.
Yeah.
I am on the wrong page.
And I think
But
it's
still, it still says Seaside Kids on
we
this.
can talk about that.
this,
So,
the
I'd
new
like
draft.
to make a motion.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Hold on, Mike.
I'd like to
Mike.
make a motion.
Mike, I'm making a motion.
Yes, what is the motion?
I move to provide Skylar with authority to sign the IGA on behalf of Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District, provided the edits recommended by the board are incorporated into the final draft and that no further material modifications to the agreement are made.
Legal review. We haven't had legal review yet.
I'll take that friendly amendment and pending review by our,
We've got it,
final review by our council.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor signify aye, opposed nays too?
I agree, yes, whatever.
Aye.
I'm tired,
Bye.
Thank
I'll
you.
tell you what, it's been a long time since we did that original IGA. And I don't think, obviously, it was as thorough, but this is purposeful. And I think, it'd be good for everyone. And it's a living document, and we've got wiggle room if we need to wiggle with, we'll scream.
Aye or nay?
And I'll scream, no. I don't know, what do you think, Scott?
Mike, aye or nay?
Voting.
For voting. Glenn?
I
Aye.
can't hear, I
Aye.
can't echo.
Is your thing working?
It's working, but the microphone is,
You're good.
I'm not looking at it.
We got the.
I'm
Okay.
looking at you.
We're gonna do, yes, motion carries. Does anybody have any board comment they have to say? No,
None.
we're skipping that.
We have so,
Adjournment. Done.
Great, nice job.
Thank
Bravo,
you.
team, good job, that was a big lift to get that over. Good job,
Okay.
Skylar, that was a lot of back and
Good job,
forth negotiation.
I appreciate
Where's
you
tomorrow's
keeping me
meeting at
going.
8?
No, that was just fine.
Is at the museum?
It makes my brain work.
Skylar, here are the edits that I captured, it's helpful.
Yes.
Hopefully you can read my writing, I tried to.
You weren't,
I didn't update the document itself, because,
Yeah, so
Yes,
that's fine.
I just-
wanna make sure.
It's kind of a fun, it actually is designed this way.
I was worried about being in the same document that
This is
Susan
a
did, because I
designer
saw some of her comments in there, and then I thought,
And this
oh, I just did it this way.
that's
was
interesting.
factored up. And
I should have made this board comment, and but I'm getting tired. Skylar, I know that you said that you weren't hearing a lot of positives about the document.
No,
It's okay, I think you guys just, I'm not taking it personally, because I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't really want to write the document. I think there was times where I felt like you forgot that Skylar was the one that made all this mistake. So it there was a lot of, swords being poked, and I was like, oh man, I'm getting a lot of holes over here. So it's
Well,
okay,
now you know how my belly feels.
it's okay.
How do I say this? I kind of talk it down. You did a fantastic job pulling this together, and I think our job was to help finesse it across the finish line.
well, the fact that you took it on, and actually, it wasn't part of what you had to do.
Right.
You did what needed to be done.
And huge thank you to you and Mike for spearheading all of it. I mean,
I think we got to a place where we have
this
the
is
assurances
so
we need.
important.
I know.
It's been on our agenda for literally
As long as I've been on
the
the board.
last 40 months.
What?
Yeah.
Board meetings.
Yeah.
So, sorry, it's not at the museum, it's at the Riverside Suites.
What?
Good morning, Susan.
Skylar?
Yes.
We've got someone in the lobby that needs some help, I'm not sure what.
At 9?
All right. Oh, he's gonna take care of it, all right.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put the microphone closer to Skylar. I can hear Sue just fine. sitting
Or
there.
just sit next to me and I'll poke you.
Yeah. Supposed to, yeah. You need that. Good to see you, Sue.
Thanks.
Kyle gets there.
I do doodles.
Yep.
I know you do. And I love watching, because I sit next to you, I love watching your doodles. Well, usually I do it on the document, but I do it on the section. It's good to do. It's how I keep. Yeah, it's how I keep.
It's a sim. Okay, Thursday, Sue. That's your 1 week,
Oh, my
right?
gosh, yeah. I mean, yesterday I thought there was something stuck in my throat. He's gonna go take me down.
I'm so sorry.
So,
Yeah, that's covered, and,
Yeah.
I for sure, thank you so much, I appreciate it. You're welcome.
I think it's official, that Kyle and I won.
Good.
Did
you click on the write-ins?
Hi, can you do that?
You can on the desktop, I don't know if,
I was
sometimes it
interested
just takes, sometimes it takes a while. Chelsea,
this one, the only contentious one, look at that, 5 votes.
wow, that's like, that
Three
one's
times-
almost
I
even
know,
on
well,
Martin
9.
and Chelsea.
Yeah, so how do you just,
Chelsea said they didn't pass the budget
oh yeah, it was huge,
because of the.
people are pissed.
The Justine, or not Justine, but,
Tony,
Tony
so
thing?
many
Or was there other
things,
stuff?
oh, so many things.
what
Yeah.
else was wrong with it? She only told me about that part, so.
Well, so Tony was giving herself a big fat
I
raise.
heard about that, yeah, I've
Mhm.
heard many things about that.
Yeah.
Between Sarah and Chelsea.
Yeah, and then apparently, her husband was gonna get one.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah, right? Just a lot. There's like, Becky Siebold had a ton of like,
Questions?
Oh,
You
so
mean
many.
questions?
so many questions. So if I go to, on the actual thing, I'm just curious, like,
I only know at some point I was able to see the write-in candidates.
I wanna know who these people
Maybe
are.
it takes a little while for them to upload, or maybe it's only on the website version. I just remember being able to see that.
I would like
It is
to,
fascinating.
rub it in Kyle's face though, so that I got more votes than he did.
You might have more, because remember, it's just your precinct.
No, but the thing is,
We're-
Kyle.
Oh, I
did
guess,
not-
no, sorry, the district is
He didn't put
everything.
a thing in there, you know
No, I
what I
know.
did? I went into Darren.
It's not that neat, it just makes me feel good.
What's it say?
35 to 8, that's like,
Look what
an
you.
NBA player playing the middle school player right there.
I know, he didn't even break 100, or 800. He didn't even break 800, like, I mean, you gotta feel bad for the new guy.
Yeah, but he didn't bother to write anything.
I know.
You did.
You know,
I mean,
this is-
and when I
this
told
is-
Darren this afternoon, because I went in saying, I'm sorry, I've not been keeping up with the papers, I don't feel good. Who's this guy? And he said, I don't know, but she's in the pamphlet. And I said, okay, she got my vote. Because she took the effort to do it, and the guy didn't. I said,
Okay,
guess
have a
what?
good night. Thank you for putting in the long hours.
If I
Thank
didn't
you.
know, if I didn't know Kyle,